The case of Roula Pispirigou is a tragic story that shook Greece and left many people questioning how such a thing could happen. Roula was a nurse, a job that many respect for its challenges and complexities. However, her life took a dark turn when she was accused of killing her three daughters, Malena, Irida, and Georgina. These heartbreaking events occurred over a span of just a few years. Malena died in 2019, shortly followed by Irida in 2021, and then Georgina in 2022. The circumstances surrounding their deaths brought the family's heartbreak into the spotlight. Roula's relationship with her husband, Manos Daskalakis, is a key part of this story. Their marriage seemed normal on the outside, but people began to wonder if Roula's actions were tied to her desire to keep her family together. The idea of love, marriage, and loyalty often complicates matters of the heart. In her quest to maintain the appearance of a perfect family, Roula's actions led to tragic consequences. It's shocking to think that a mother could be involved in such horrible acts against her children. The investigations into the deaths of her daughters revealed many unsettling details. Medical records and autopsy reports painted a grim picture surrounding the girls' health and mysterious deaths. All three suffered from unexplained medical issues before their tragic ends, leaving authorities puzzled and on high alert. Investigators worked diligently to piece together the evidence. They explored Roula's background and found that she had faced significant personal challenges. The public reaction was a mix of disbelief, horror, and empathy toward the innocent children caught in this nightmare. As the news unfolded, it rippled through the hearts of many in Greece. People flocked to social media platforms to express their outrage and sadness. News outlets covered the story in great detail, showing how deeply such acts can affect a community. The overall impact of this heartbreaking case served as a reminder of the complex nature of human relationships and the lengths some may go to preserve their ideals, even at great cost to others. Many began to reflect on how a loving mother could turn into a source of fear and sorrow, leaving lingering questions about love, loss, and the dark sides of humanity. The story begins to take a darker turn as the investigation into the deaths of Malena and Irida unfolds. At first, both cases were treated as tragic occurrences with no clear evidence of foul play. Many people believed that Malena's death, which occurred when she was just 3 years old, was due to natural causes. The doctors reported that she had health problems, including a fever and convulsions. Her mother, Roula Pispirigou, was deeply affected by this loss. The whole family mourned Malena's death. At this stage, no one suspected that anything more sinister had occurred. A similar fate met Irida, who was just a little over 6 months old when she died in 2021. Like her sister, Irida also had medical issues prior to her passing. Doctors described her situation as complicated but did not suspect foul play. Roula continued to show immense grief, portraying herself as a heartbroken mother. The perception at that time was that their deaths had been unfortunate accidents, with all attention focused on the nursing mother's devotion to her children during their illnesses. However, everything changed with the tragic passing of Georgina in January 2022. Unlike her sisters, Georgina's health issues sparked serious concern. The symptoms she displayed before her untimely death were alarming. There was a struggle during the brief time she fought for her life, which led doctors to label her situation as suspicious. As investigators began piecing together the events surrounding Georgina's final hours, they uncovered troubling clues. Initial tests suggested she had been poisoned, which raised immediately alarm bells. This shocking revelation forced investigators to take a closer look at the previous deaths of Malena and Irida. With new eyes, they re-examined the medical reports and their findings. As they dug deeper, forensic specialists opened the possibility that Malena and Irida's deaths might not have been natural after all. A thorough investigation of their past revealed hints that both children had experienced sudden health declines without clear diagnosis, leading detectives to reconsider their initial conclusions. The true turning point was the discovery that both sisters had signs of asphyxiation. Toxicologists were brought in to analyze tissue samples and historical medical data. This blend of assessments provided a clearer view of what might have occurred. Each piece of evidence accumulated, creating a pattern suggesting a chilling reality that could not be ignored. It soon became apparent to detectives that the sweet facade Roula had presented to the outside world had been hiding something far more dangerous. As the investigation progressed, community members were taken aback. Many had embraced Roula as a devoted mother who had to endure unthinkable losses. Now, this new information unfolded a web of concern and confusion that gripped the town. Friendships soured, and neighbors who once shared meals now looked upon Roula with suspicion. Throughout this tumultuous period, Roula often appeared calm and collected, maintaining her innocence and denying any wrongdoing. However, cracks began to surface in her composure as the investigation took on a new life. Each day brought fresh conversations and rumors, planting seeds of doubt about her character and actions. The growing tension clashed with the initial perceptions held by the public, demanding a more profound examination of every aspect of Roula's life moving forward. As the investigation progressed into a criminal trial, the atmosphere surrounding Roula Pispirigou grew heavy with tension. The courtroom became a stage for the painful story of Malena and Irida, where every detail mattered. Roula faced the serious charges of murdering both of her daughters, and prosecutor Vasiliki Dimopoulos stood ready to lay out the case against her. During the hearings, Vasiliki presented a compelling argument that suggested Roula had committed these terrible acts to hold onto her marriage. In her view, Roula felt pressure to maintain the illusion of a perfect family. The prosecutor painted a picture of a mother who was struggling with deep-seated insecurities. Each action appeared to be calculated, with Roula willing to sacrifice her own children to achieve a life that seemed ideal on the outside. This argument hit hard with those in attendance. Many spectators were shocked by the suggestion that a mother could act with such intentional malice. The responses from the public were visceral. Outside the courtroom, crowds gathered, expressing anger and outrage. Many people clutched photographs of Malena and Irida, highlighting their innocence and the loss of the young lives. They carried signs stating justice for the children and called for Roula to be held accountable for her actions. The energy in the air felt electric, with voices rising in unity against perceived injustice. As the trial went on, it became clear that emotions ran deep on both sides. Meanwhile, the defense team worked diligently to challenge the prosecution's claims. They painted Roula as a grieving mother who had suffered incomprehensible losses. Her attorneys argued that the evidence presented was circumstantial and highlighted the uncertainty around the medical situations of both girls. Roula's defense sought to prove that the actions taken by medical personnel were insufficient to determine foul play and accused the prosecutors of leaping to conclusions without all the facts. They insisted that Roula was innocent, caught purely in the grip of a mother's grief over her children's ailments. However, as the proceedings progressed, the investigation's findings about Roula's actions began to draw attention. Details emerged illustrating how she had gone to great lengths to manipulate situations surrounding her daughter's health. Talking about prescriptions and clinical visits, the prosecution illustrated patterns in Roula's behavior that suggested preparation and an unusual calmness during emergencies. Her lack of emotion during critical moments raised suspicions. Many were shocked to learn about the way she had allegedly arranged for medical interventions that led to her daughters, Malena and Irida, ultimately suffering from fatal conditions. With each session, the courtroom scene unfolded like a gripping novel. The onlookers leaned in, listening carefully to testimonies and observations aimed at piecing together the role Roula played in the lives of her children. As more evidence surfaced, the prosecution steadily gained traction. The admissibility of present-day forensic expertise solidified its position, convincing the jurors of Roula's culpability. In the backdrop of this legal drama, her confidence seemed to waver, a subtle shift barely discernible to the public eye. While Roula sat in silence, absorbing the ongoing deliberations, the balance seemed to tilt unfavorably against her. Despite the defense's attempts to champion her innocence, the mounting weight of evidence pointed toward darker truths. As the courtroom buzzed with fervent discussions about justice and sorrow, Roula faced the reality that her days as a grieving mother under a questioning spotlight fundamentally shifted. Each testimony, each piece of evidence, and each reaction from the public pulled her deeper into a narrative she had hoped to escape. As the murder trial of Roula Pispirigou began in Athens, the courtroom buzzed with tension and emotion. People filled the seats, eager to witness the unfolding drama. Among those present was Roula's ex-husband, Manos Daskalakis. His expression mirrored the heaviness that gripped the room, containing a mix of heartbreak and disbelief. Sitting close to him were the family members of the innocent victims, Malena and Irida. They donned serious expressions, and their presence reflected the sadness and sorrow that hung in the air. The atmosphere was charged as everyone awaited the opening arguments. The judge, dressed in formal robes, called the session to order. The sounds of shuffling papers and muted conversations faded into silence, creating a somber, necessary focus. The prosecutor, Vasiliki Dimapola, rose confidently to present her case against Roula. Her voice resonated through the courtroom, carrying the weight of accusation and despair. She painted a picture of a mother who planned and executed the deaths of her own children with a cold determination. Dimapola introduced crucial evidence, claiming that Roula acted with forethought. She underscored how hidden signs of manipulation and calculated actions positioned Roula not merely as a grieving mother, but as someone who had made dire choices. The prosecutor emphasized the idea of methodical intent. Dimapola argued that Roula had committed the tragic acts not in a moment of despair but intentionally, part of a plan to maintain a facade of a perfect family amid personal turmoil. Each word shifted the dynamic of the room, as jurors listened intently, absorbing the gravity of the claims being presented. The prosecutor also highlighted various testimonies from medical professionals and forensic experts. These experts elaborated on the conditions surrounding Malena and Irida's deaths, reinforcing the assertion that their lives had ended due to unnatural causes. Dimapola's presentation aimed to weave a narrative that not only challenged Roula's innocence but also created a sense of urgency for the jury to factor in the emotional impact of these crimes on the victims' families. Witnesses spoke in sobering tones, recounting their analysis of the medical records. Their words painted an unsettling picture of how normal, loving moments had turned into grief-stricken tragedies. The room could feel the waves of sorrow as some family members wiped tears from their eyes. The voices of the witnesses created spaces where quiet realizations began to seep into the minds of those who listened. This was not just a clinical legal matter, but a heart-wrenching story that involved real people with untold pain. As Roula listened to the emotional testimonies led against her, subtle signs of distress appeared upon her face. She maintained her composure, but others could sense the weight of the accusations sinking in. Her breaths became slightly deeper, indicating the mounting pressure she felt in those moments. The dynamics of the courtroom morphed drastically from the initial quiet discussions. Emotions transformed into raw tension. With the key testimonies echoing through the chambers of justice, it was clear the trajectory of the trial had taken an intense turn. As the prosecutor concluded her initial arguments, a charged silence filled the room, punctuated by the sound of shuffled papers and nervously clearing throats. This moment would come to stand as a powerful point in the trial, the moment that forever changed the trajectory for Roula, the accused mother, and the families whose lives had been torn apart. The fierce emotional battle within the courtroom signified that the true challenge was just beginning. As the trial of Roula Pispirigou continued, the atmosphere in the courtroom was thick with tension. The prosecution's case against her gained momentum as several key pieces of evidence were presented. Detailed forensic analyses revealed evidence that Roula had suffocated her daughters, Malena and Irida, and poisoned her youngest, Georgina. The courtroom listened intently as the prosecutor reinforced these claims with carefully collected facts. The key testimony came from medical experts who confirmed the causes of death for each child. These witnesses explained that autopsy results indicated signs consistent with asphyxiation, especially in the cases of Malena and Irida. They described how the absence of any medical explanation for the sudden deaths raised serious concerns. One expert noted that all the signs pointed towards intentional actions rather than natural causes. When they spoke of the evidence, their voices conveyed the chilling nature of the findings, bringing an unsettling silence over the court. The narrative shifted again when the discussion turned towards Georgina's case. The experts revealed that Georgina had tested positive for ketamine, a powerful anesthetic drug that could cause serious harm. The discovery of ketamine raised alarms, serving as a turning point in the investigation. The prosecution argued that it represented not only an attempt at poisoning but also pointed to how Roula's tragic pattern of behavior had persisted. Prosecutor Vasiliki Dimapola reiterated the chilling idea that Roula might have attempted to harm, her only living daughter, to maintain an image of a troubled mother rather than one with malicious intent. The testimony from investigators added substantial weight to the prosecution's argument. They detailed the thorough steps taken in the investigation, from gathering medical records to analyzing family behavioral patterns. The investigators shared the hardships they faced while connecting the case's dots against a facade presented by Roula. Their consistency and unwavering dedication revealed a commitment to uncovering the truth, which unnerved everyone in the room. As Roula sat in her chair, absorbing the emotional strain of the proceedings, subtle nuances began to emerge in her demeanor. The confidence she had carried with her appeared to dissipate as forensic evidence collided with the narrative of her role as a grieving mother. Her eyes flickered nervously from witness to witness, grappling with the realities exposed. A moment of realization washed over her, a realization steeped in the consequences laid bare by the courtroom drama. One key investigator spoke with eloquence, describing how the repeated patterns in Roula's behavior were undeniable. They pointed out odd behaviors, like having complicated reactions to media inquiries and public sympathy, while her children suffered from severe health issues. It painted a picture of a mother operating under mounting stress, but also revealed a chilling duality, the deeply troubling shadows hiding behind the face of grief. As various testimonies unfolded, the jurors' expressions shifted, revealing their growing understanding of the gravity of the situation. They exchanged glances, absorbing the weight of the emotional evidence presented, wrestling with the complex emotions stirred by the case. The more they learned, the louder the unspoken questions in their collective thoughts grew. How could a mother inflict such pain? In this moment of profound insight, Roula faced the realization that the picture painted of a desperate parent longing for help was gradually giving way to a darker portrayal of calculated intent. Each key witness bore witness to a truth that cut through the narrative she had built, signaling a pivotal shift where denial faltered and the reality of her actions surfaced. As the courtroom drama continued to unfold, it became evident that the emotional stakes had skyrocketed, and Roula would need to confront the very core of her situation. As the trial of Roula Pispirigou neared its conclusion, the courtroom was dense with anticipation. Tension hung in the air as both the prosecution and defense prepared for their closing arguments. The prosecutor, Vasiliki Dimapola, stood before the jury, summarizing the critical evidence presented in the trial. Her voice was steady as she urged the jurors to think about the lives of Malena, Irida, and Georgina. She reminded them of the tragic circumstances leading to their deaths and the chilling evidence suggesting that Roula's actions were intentional and calculated. Dimapola spoke passionately, focusing on the suffering not only of the children but also of the family left to mourn the deep losses. On the other side, Roula's defense team delivered their final statements, desperately fighting to shift the narrative away from guilt. They argued that the evidence was circumstantial, pointing to the love and dedication Roula had shown for her daughters. They attempted to position her as a mother overwhelmed by grief and struggling with health issues. However, as they spoke, many in the room felt that their words fell flat against the weight of the prosecution's case. The defense tried to portray Roula as a victim of circumstances rather than a perpetrator, but the strength of the previous testimonies had already etched their conclusions in the minds of many. Finally, the judge took over the proceedings, ready to announce the ruling on the trial. The courtroom fell silent as everyone leaned in, eager to hear what would come next. After careful consideration of the evidence and testimonies, the judge delivered the verdict. Roula Pispirigou was found guilty of murdering her daughters, Malena and Irida, and attempting to murder Georgina. These decisions carried significant consequences. The judge handed down 3 life sentences for the murders. The enormity of the ruling struck a palpable chord in the courtroom. Those present reacted with a mixture of emotions: relief, sadness, disbelief, and even anger. As the gavel struck, the judge's tone was serious, underscoring the gravity of the situation. Witnesses from both the prosecution and the defense felt the weight of the moment as they absorbed the reality that justice had been served in the most profound way. As Roula sat there, her expression hardened and her demeanor shifted. In contrast to her previous calm, something intangible seemed to fracture. After the ruling was read, she stood to address the court one last time. Her voice trembled slightly but met the audience with quiet defiance. In her statement, she maintained her innocence, professing that she had loved her children fiercely. She claimed that the tragic events had occurred outside her control and expressed a profound sadness for the loss that had unfolded in her family. Her words, however, fell on ears hopeful for resolution, overshadowed by earlier testimonies that had formed a stark picture of her actions. As part of the proceedings, the victim's family displayed photos of Malena, Irida, and Georgina. Pictures filled with joy, laughter, and precious memories became a part of the courtroom scene, serving as a haunting reminder of the innocent lives lost. The images evoked a wave of emotions, showing the stark contrast between the loving moments captured in the photographs and the tragedies that had unfolded. Many wiped away tears as they felt the weight of their grief manifest in the courtroom. In the days that followed, the decision echoed beyond the walls of that courtroom, leaving ripples of emotions throughout the community. Many still grappled with trying to understand how love could be twisted into such pain. The sentences handed down to Roula were seen as a harsh verdict but also a necessary cautionary tale, one reflecting the pressing urgency for love and protection over the vulnerabilities concealed in even the most familial relationships. The trial closed a chapter, but the impacts of the events would linger in the hearts of many. In the aftermath of Roula Pispirigou's conviction, the public response echoed throughout the streets of Greece. Many people felt a mix of relief and outrage as they processed the significance of the verdict. The case gripped the nation, leading to extensive media coverage that explored the intense emotions connected to the tragic deaths of Malena, Irida, and Georgina. Headlines plastered across newspapers and news sites reflected a range of public sentiment. From anger toward Roula to sorrow for the lost children, the reactions were intense and often polarized. Social media played a critical role in the public conversation. People shared their thoughts, memories, and condolences, expressing their grief for the victims and their families. Online platforms exploded with hashtags calling for justice, allowing individuals to connect with others who were feeling the same heartbreak and frustration. That digital space turned into a virtual community, sparking discussions about deeper issues, such as child protection and the responsibilities of parents. Protests soon emerged outside the courtroom as well as in various public squares. Groups of people gathered, holding banners and candles, lighting candles in memory of the three girls. Some participants called for justice reform and stronger laws to protect children from similar situations in the future. The collective voice sought not only awareness of the case itself but also broader systemic changes, expressing hope that the tragedies involving child safety would never repeat themselves. The emotional weight behind these protests underscored the public's drive for change and responsibility in safeguarding children. At the same time, the media leaned heavily into examining the justice system and the adequacy of existing child protection measures. Journalists and commentators began discussing potential gaps and flaws within the system that may have allowed such heartbreaking circumstances to unfold unnoticed for so long. Each story featured expert opinions, public figures, and child advocacy organizations aiming to bring forth ideas about how to strengthen laws and implement stronger community safeguards. The case resonated deeply across society. Families reflected more openly about parenting and the pressure sometimes faced in maintaining a facade of perfection. Conversations sprang up about how societal expectations could warp relationships and put tremendous individual pressure on parents, leading them into dark places. Many began to engage in dialogue around mental health and support systems, emphasizing the need for honest discussions within families and communities. On various discussion panels, experts voiced the importance of recognizing warning signs that could indicate a parent might be struggling for help. The psychological aspects of the case soon became the focal point of many analyses. Why did Roula feel driven to commit such tragedies? This question lingered throughout the public discourse, urging a blend of compassion and caution. For some, the understanding of her motive seemed crucial for reframing parenting and the support required for families. Some members of the community struggled to cope with the stark realities revealed during the trial, feeling disillusioned by the case's outcomes. It challenged their perceptions of trust in parental figures and compounding consequences within the family model. Many found themselves grappling with confusion, attempting to reconcile deep love with destructive actions. Through all these unfolding events and discussions, Roula's tragic case served as a stark reminder of vulnerabilities that can exist within the very structures designed to nurture and protect. It became clear that the conversation wasn't just about one family's devastation but a broader cultural imperative to secure the safety of children across the nation. Thus, the whispers of outrage soon transformed into roaring calls for structural changes and collective consciousness towards safeguarding future generations. After Roula Pispirigou's conviction, she stood before the court one last time, determined and steadfast. With a calm demeanor, she declared her innocence, insisting that she had never harmed her daughters. Her voice resonated with defiance as she vowed to appeal her sentence, proclaiming that the truth would ultimately prevail. This moment became notable in the courtroom, emphasizing her refusal to accept the verdict handed down by the jury. In the days that followed, Roula's legal team sprang into action to initiate the appeal process. They gathered to review the transcripts of the trial proceedings, seeking to identify any potential grounds for appeal. Several legal strategies began to take shape as they meticulously combed through the details, analyzing witness testimonies, evidence admissibility, and procedural matters that may have impacted the outcome. The appeal process involved specific legal steps, often complex and requiring a significant amount of time. Roula's attorneys filed a formal notice of appeal, an official document stating her intention to challenge the conviction. This notice outlined the key issues they intended to contest, focusing on claims of unfair trial, the handling of evidence, and potential biases in the jury's decision-making. They argued that certain critical pieces of evidence were not given proper consideration during the trial, which they believed played a significant role in the final ruling. Once the notice was submitted, the legal team began drafting a detailed appeal brief. This document would need to clearly outline the arguments for Roula's case, supported by legal precedents and applicable laws. The brief was an important step in articulating the case for an appeal and needed to be compelling. It required significant research and thorough knowledge of both law and the events of the trial itself to create a strong foundation for their arguments. After submitting the appeal brief, the next step involved waiting for a hearing date. This phase could stretch to several months, as the court schedule was often busy. During this waiting period, Roula remained hopeful. She frequently connected with her attorneys, eager for updates and to understand how best to navigate the complexities of the judicial process. The wait was agonizing for her, filled with moments of reflection about her circumstances and the loss she had experienced. As the appeal date approached, the legal team prepared for the oral arguments that would be presented in front of the appellate judges. This preparation was crucial, as it allowed them to refine their strategy and practice, responding to potential questions or challenges that the judges might raise. Roula's attorneys planned to emphasize issues of fairness in the trial and highlight any aspects they had found questionable. The anticipation of the upcoming appeal also sparked interest in various media outlets. Reporters tracked Roula's case closely, providing updates and insights into the legal proceedings as they unfolded. This added an extra layer of pressure on Roula, but she remained resolved in her pursuit of justice. She leaned on messages of support from outside, focusing on the voices that continued to believe in her innocence. While she faced a daunting path ahead, Roula found a sense of strength in her determination to fight back. She understood that the appellate court would review the facts of her case once more, providing her with another opportunity to present her perspective. In the back of her mind, she held on to the hope of a different outcome, one that would clear her name and bring peace to her family. Through these challenging legal hurdles, Roula's experience stirred larger conversations about the complexities of the judicial system, the potential for errors in legal proceedings, and the fundamental principles of justice. It created space for individuals and families to draw insights about the necessity for vigilance and advocacy in legal matters, reinforcing the idea that the pursuit of truth and justice does not end with a single verdict. It often leads to another chapter in the story of accountability and understanding. As Roula embarked on her appeal, she recognized that, despite the struggles she faced, there remained a chance to reclaim her voice and narrative within the broader context of a community grappling with grief and loss. As time passed, Roula Pispirigou's appeal began to take shape, marking a significant step in her ongoing legal journey. Following her conviction, Roula's legal team worked diligently to gather further evidence and explore alternate theories that could overturn the verdict. The appeal process gave her a renewed sense of purpose, allowing her to believe that maybe, just maybe, a different outcome awaited her in the appellate court. Her case continued to draw attention from the media, leading to discussions on the legal proceedings and potential implications for justice in Greece. As of the latest updates, Roula's appeal was still pending, drawing scrutiny from legal experts and the public. The appeals court had accepted her case, and attorneys engaged in careful preparations to argue against her previous conviction. Supporters remained hopeful that the appellate judges would meticulously review the evidence, presenting her argument and revitalizing the discourse around her circumstances. This ongoing legal process kept Roula's story prominent in the media, where passionate discussions about her innocence persisted alongside the deeply rooted emotions tied to her daughter's tragic deaths. The case had significant long-term effects on the Greek legal system, especially concerning child protection laws and the responsibilities of medical professionals. As members of the public engaged in conversations about the case, they also highlighted the issues surrounding the expectations placed on parents in times of distress. Many advocates called for greater awareness regarding child welfare and the tools available to support families facing severe crises. The outpouring of emotion surrounding Roula's experiences became a catalyst for critical discussions on how to better identify and address the needs of families, particularly regarding mental health and parental support. Furthermore, medical professionals became bombarded with discussions on patient care and risk assessments in similar cases. The public became increasingly aware of the complexities involved in diagnosing medical conditions in children and the importance of the collaboration between healthcare providers. Many organizations advocated for improved protocols for identifying potential signs of harm in young patients while stressing the need for clear communication between parents and doctors. Legislative discussions on enhancing protections for children became more prominent. Legislators began reviewing existing laws, aiming to create stronger safeguards that could prevent future tragedies. Steps were proposed to improve training for professionals working with families in crisis, ensuring they are equipped to recognize when early interventions are necessary. The case highlighted the delicate balance between parental rights and child protection, which many felt needed more thoughtful consideration. Society's awareness grew sharper alongside these legal shifts. The tragic story ignited a desire for positive change, creating opportunities for communities to rally together. Many grassroots organizations emerged, focusing on mental health support, advocacy for children, and the establishment of clear reporting systems for suspected abuse or neglect. People acknowledged that addressing the root causes of dysfunction could lead to healthier families and more robust societal connections. In summary, the resolution of Roula Pispirigou's case, while remaining unresolved in the legal sense, sparked essential conversations and actions within the Greek legal framework and society. The love and loss experienced by the families involved became a nation's call to action, a power that not only sought justice but also inspired systemic change towards a brighter future for children and families. Although the battle for truth and justice continued in Roula's appeal, the collective growth in legal thought and public awareness provided a hopeful perspective. This case encouraged many to become advocates for change in every corner of the community, striving to ensure that no child's voice goes unheard and that families receive the support they need to thrive.